Bad Ben Eulogy. While I haven't covered absolutely every single Bad Ben film on the channel before, I have seen them all, and as I've said multiple times at this point, my experience with them has been kind of a roller coaster. Some I've had a ton of fun with, while others I haven't, but for the most part, it took me a long time to fully realize what the series was all about. And when it clicked, I really did get into it. So when I heard that this 10th movie was coming out, this landmark film in the series, I was galvanized to check it out. So let's get cracking. This review is brought to you by the word of the day, galvanize, to startle into sudden activity. Bad Ben Eulogy takes place sometime after the events of the previous film, where, spoiler alert, we find out that Tom Riley has actually died. This time around, an investigative journalist is documenting his investigation into who Tom Riley was, why he died, and potentially how he could bring him back from the dead. So, biggest question of the day, how do you watch the movie? Because you can't just log into Vudu or Amazon Prime and just watch it like you would any other film, right? No, this one's a little bit different. You have to go to the website, badbentv.com, where you would either buy a monthly or annual subscription to the website, or you could also individually rent whatever movie you're interested in watching. I will admit that that's not the easiest or most streamlined way to watch any given movie. It's not, but if you get the chance to check it out, I recommend it because most of the movies are a ton of fun to watch in general. And as an independent filmmaker that has shopped around for distributors, I understand the struggle and I understand why he put it on his website. Just saying. So Bad Ben Eulogy has a pretty interesting premise. Most of the films do, really, because it follows around a different main character on a different found footage medium. This time the main format is basically video podcast, which is once again different from the other films. I'm consistently impressed with Nigel Bach's ability to constantly change the tone and the style of his films so that not all of them feel exactly the same over and over again, which is pretty much what other found footage franchises do anyway. But if I'm being 100% honest, I actually think that the idea that this film's trying to do works a lot better for a short film than a full-length movie. What I mostly mean by that is that it feels more filler than it feels integral. It basically pulls off a Bad Ben pandemic situation where there's a lot of video submissions that fans have given to be put into the movie, and the way that those are edited into the film doesn't always feel perfect. They don't always work. I mean, at best, they feel repetitious and unneeded. It's cool as a fan to see it, but it's not important narratively. Basically, the podcaster character is going into the life of Tom Riley by looking at his previous work as a paranormal investigator, and so he digs up customer files. Every time that he does this, it's the same exact thing. You got Tom Riley standing next to a picture frame saying, meet so-and-so, meet John Smith, for instance. He reached out to me for help when he found out that his house was haunted, or whatever. Then it would go into footage of Tom Riley doing the actual investigating. He would screw something up because that's funny and because he's a moron, and then rinse repeat. You'd meet another customer, another customer, another customer, see another investigation, and another, over and over again. And none of these things actually contributed to the plot of the film or what the podcaster character was trying to do, at least not until the end of the film. And everything in the middle is essentially pointless from a narrative standpoint. I think I felt similar as well for Haunted Highway, where he would pick up a bunch of random people that he ends up just taking back to his house. It started out interesting and funny enough, but it ended up kind of being repetitious when it just kind of happened over and over again. And you're just like, okay, I get it, but get to the point. Haunted Highway, or any other Bad Ben film, for instance, worked more from an ad-libbing perspective, right? Tom Riley isn't a character that exists, right? Tom Riley has always been more just Nigel Bach being himself, cracking jokes left and right and not really caring if the jokes land or not. That was what made the series tick, in my opinion. That's what made it hilarious. But the problem with Eulogy is that it's almost like Nigel Bach is actually trying to act in this one, because when he's introducing customers during those customer file situations or telling stories about what happened previously, it felt very forced, as if he's reading a teleprompter off screen. And because of that, it felt very wordy, it felt very drawn out, very exposition-y. And when that kind of stuff repeats itself over and over again, an audience is bound to maybe yawn a little bit, check their watch, tap their toes, or God forbid, fall asleep. The movie came out on June 30th at 9 p.m. on his website, which is when and where I watched it. But I had to pause an hour in or so because 1, I was tired, and 2, Bad Ben Eulogy just was not being as engaging as the other titles. That was the first time that ever happened to me while watching a Bad Ben movie. So once again, this is a story as a whole that could have been told in 15 to 20 minutes tops as a short prequel film, which exist. We all know they exist. What Eulogy is essentially trying to do is bridge a gap so that more Bad Ben films can be made in the future. And stories that act as bridges work a lot better as short films. So when you try to expand that to 90 minutes, you're gonna get a lot of filler, repetitious material. And if you're not doing your typical ad-libbing thing, your filler material isn't gonna get much laughs in the meantime. And if you're not getting much of that, you're honestly not getting much of anything really. Overall, I am glad to see yet another Bad Ben film, the 10th in like 6 years. But it's not narratively his best film in the series, but what it does do is prepare for further films that might be great, and I'm all for that. So let's go ahead and look at my final score for a second, which is a D- letter score with a final rating of 44%. As you can see, I am typically more lenient with my letter grades than other people, which is why a 44% isn't an F for me, but again, it's also not a film that impressed me on nearly any level. Nothing about it felt great to me. The pacing was a little bit wonky because there's a lot of repetitious filler material, and most of the jokes didn't really land this time around, so a lot of this film seems kind of pointless if we're being honest, but it's not. Some of it is important if you're to ever watch a Bad Ben movie in the future. And that's it, guys. Are you a fan of Bad Ben? And if so, what are your thoughts about the series as a whole? Which one's your favorite, and how do you rank this one? And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell to be notified when I come out with my next review. And until then, peace out.